Hey, Mohammed, nice to see you again. Mohammed. Now, this is the main man. Mohammed has already interviewed me in a ways. He is a very interesting man. He deals with technology and automation, and he's got a huge skill set when it comes to that. But more so, he's got a great mindset. So I was curious with the subject matter that he came along one day, and it's to do with spiritualism, the mind with technology. And I thought, spiritual, the mind and technology. So I contacted him. I said, Mohammed, what is that all about? So he sent me back a message and then we spoke. So enough about me. This is Mohamed Es Fih. Nice to have you on here. About time.
Thanks, Eli. It's always an honor and a pleasure to share some time with you.
Oh, thank you, my man.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I mean, like you said, you gave me the opportunity to talk to you and interview you, and now it's at least the minimum that we should follow up on the other way around, where you guide me and you interview me.
The thing is when you had me on the interview, you were ruthless. You had me squirming. I was crying. No, I'm only joking. And I thought I'd pay you back. But no, it's a pleasure to having you on here. Just tell us exactly what you're doing work-wise, the company you're with. Just give us an overview, and then we'll flow from there.
Sure. So the company, or my main attention and priority and work, is with Artila, Artila.com, RTILA.com. In North African dialect, it means, sorry, I'm dealing with the flu still. Mm-hmm. In the North African dialect, it means the spider. So that's what it means. And it's actually the idea of navigating and spawning your web in the web.
I see.
In the World Wide Web. So that's how we started the name. And it's my partner, Tariq, who started with the name. So that's the meaning of Artila. And it's, like you said, it's web automation software. It's an automation software, or let's call it a digital automation software. We started as a web scraper. And why actually I stick to Artila and I really allocate a lot of focus is because I would, like you, as an entrepreneur, I want to optimize my businesses and those of my clients.
Okay.
And then I experimented with what are the tools available, and I tried so many different tools. And then with Artila, I saw that there was a potential to go very granular. You know, there is a study, maybe I can link to it later, share it with you, that did a study about businesses using RPA, robotic process automation. Mm-hmm. And then there was a figure that really hit me, and I think is real, is that almost 80 to 90% of companies who started an automation project, they don't finish it. They are not able to fully put it into place for that company. So it was like a huge rate of let's say, not failure, but non-completion of an automation objective. And that's what I liked with Artila, is that it will go that little extra 100 meters, that little extra mile, where you can come and tweak your things and then use other tools and combine it together and finally bring automation, start the engine of automation for that company and then benefit from that momentum.
Can I just stop you there just quickly? So it was a situation that you found that the majority of software out there didn't quite cut the mustard. It was easy enough to use, but they didn't have the flexibility for most businesses. So
that's right. And also this is applicable to Artila itself. Artila is not the one solution for everything, just like the other softwares are. But even I was using an ecosystem of software, probably like you, different automation softwares, different automation platforms like Zapier, Make, and so on. But even with that whole ecosystem, there was always a small thing that none of them could cover. And that's where it sparked in my mind that, hey, Artila can actually, that can be a differentiation thing for us at Artila, is that can we push the granularity of the automation to a deeper level so that we can enhance the use of all that ecosystem of software.
Okay, so let's break it down from there. So we totally understand that large companies could use this, because if you've got a large infrastructure, such as, you have a lot of employees, you can also help with that. But can it help the individual person, is it a situation that automation is just used for large companies, or can it be used for individual people that are just starting out in business?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Eli. So I would like classify I classified the users in three categories.
Okay.
We could say the consumer level, which is someone that needs a quick automation and doesn't have time to either learn, search too much. They just want to automate XYB, which is like a classic automation, be it finding contacts on LinkedIn or posting messages on Facebook, something they just want to go, click, and get the result. But then this kind of segment of the market will actually buy the output of our users of Artila, because our users of Artila, they can like you can compile an automation, a unique automation. You can compile it into your own standalone software that will do exactly that flow that the consumer wants. He or she just wants to click somewhere, enter a data, and then get the result. So for us, it's like the secondary market, and it will be those who are going to spend more time on Artila. And then there's the two other categories after consumers, is what I would call the prosumer. You familiar with this prosumer? I think they use it in
break it down for
the
us.
physical world. Yeah. Prosumer is like a consumer that goes to the professional level of consumerism.
Okay.
For example, if I take the 3D printing, you may have a consumer level that they just want a 3D printer that is very easy to use, and then to produce something, they just download an existing file, print, and then enjoy the consumption of that service. And then you have the prosumer who is a consumer. He's not yet a professional or an agency, but that user is going to take the machine or the tool or the software to the next level to customize it. So that's prosumer, is that even for your own self-business or for your own self-use, you're going to go almost to the professional level. So it's called prosumer. It's like an advanced consumer level type of user. So that's also a segment that businesses can target when your solution is not ready for consumers who do not have time and they don't want to invest time. Prosumers, they do have time, and they want to save money, and they want to spend time learning to increase their output. So that's prosumers, and we have a lot of prosumers with Artila because then it becomes valuable. And then after the prosumer, there's a category of professional use, or like agencies, meaning that these are the companies that that are solution oriented, and they're planning, or their income is from helping other businesses. So they create solutions, they solve problems so that they can help other companies who don't necessarily want to spend time in R&D and development. They just want to solve their own problems. So these are the three categories that I noticed, at least for us at Artila: consumer, prosumer, and then agencies or enterprise use.
This is interesting, because I'm just thinking from the point of view, straight from your branding and the naming of Artila, and you had a concept to understand what you was trying to do with Artila. You've taken it from there, and plus you've broken down obviously who you're trying to target, and you found actually a unique way to try to bridge that gap between the consumers and also to the professionals, which is really interesting. Now, this is the mindset that I'm trying to understand. Now, I know you're a person that's really focused on a strong mind and spiritualism and whatever else. Now, before you ever got to the stage of bringing this company together, there was a time when you thought things had to change. You wanted to do something special. You wanted to do something different. Just take us back to a point where you thought in your life you had to think to yourself, right, not happy with what I'm giving at the moment or how I'm feeling. I want to do something extra. Could you take us back to a time where you just felt like something had to change?
Yeah, sure. So it's hard to ping pong one specific moment, because I had to change many times in my life or career. But maybe I can summarize it with two critical changes that go together.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I started my journey as an entrepreneur upside down.
Okay.
Like when I look at people who are successful, they focus on their own personal success at the beginning of their life until, I don't know, they reach the success. So like most of the big business people that made it, and then after they're successful in business, they turn into philanthropy and then helping others and giving back to society, giving back to the universe.
Hmm.
So me, it was like I did the mistake, or I had the blessing of doing it the other way around. Like at age 17, I already thought, what can I do to help the others?
Yeah.
So I didn't really focus on my personal wealth. I didn't really focus on making money. I had in English, is it you say asceticism?
Yeah.
I had a form of asceticism that I don't want to own a house, land. It's just like it felt like a burden to own something.
Yeah.
So that's how I started. So I started like trying to give what I didn't have. Basically,
I feel you,
first,
Mohamed. I feel you, because that was one of my failures when I first began, because I'm a person that likes to help, and
exactly.
so I understand where you're coming from. You help, but how can you give when you don't have?
Yeah, so I started. I mean, I gave whatever I could give at that time. When you're young, what you have is time. That's your asset.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave time. I was lucky. I never really. Because I was already in the internet at the early age, I was able to always find an opportunity and make a living and travel and meet people. So, but then when I look back now that I'm 46 years old, I look at what I've done since my teenage age to, let's say, up to when I got my daughter with my wife, because then that's a pivotal moment, because now you have like heavy responsibility. So until, let's say, you have kids, or I had kid, I was just giving more than what I actually had, in a way.
Yeah.
And then I went and I worked for socially oriented projects. I worked for the United Nations for 5 years, and then for the German Foreign Corporation for 2 years. So going to developing countries, and then guys, this is the way that you can enhance your small and medium enterprises, your ecosystem, your economy using digital tools. So we were going out and helping governments, public agencies, and small and medium enterprises in, I think I've been to 45 countries.
Wow.
Mainly helping them.
That's a lot of countries. That's a lot of countries.
Yeah, it's a lot of travel.
You're a traveler, to say the least.
Yes, and also, like, when you do this at the level of small and medium enterprises, meaning like a solo man enterprise or a small family or 2 or 3 individuals that start something.
Yes.
You also operate with small margins, high risk, no capital, lot of pressure. Compliance is so much heavier when you're small in a developing country.
Yeah.
So I did that while how to explain this? While I was not focused on making my own income.
Okay.
I was actually making enough income, because working with the UN, it's pretty well paid, and you have a lot of advantages, or working with government. So I was not bad, but then I didn't go into like entrepreneurship, where there's basically no capping in terms of income.
I see.
It's not like you have a salary and you work for a big organization. When you do entrepreneurship, it's maybe harder. There are ups and downs, but when you break through, the results are uncapped technically. So, and then when in the middle, when I was still with the UN, I started to feel that I am not actually being effective in terms of making an impact in the universe or in the world.
Okay.
Even like with the UN and other big agencies, you have big budgets, you have a lot of skilled people, a lot of, like, there's no material lack when you work with these organizations, because they can allocate budgets, and then we go and we implement a project.
Okay.
But then I felt that it was not giving the results that I wish we could have.
Okay.
Because of certain limitations. And then I thought, let me go out of this, and let me now go back and be an entrepreneur. And because now I have a family and I have responsibility, I need to make money for myself first. So I need to boost my own businesses. So now I turned it the other way around. What is the right balance between personal benefit and personal growth in terms of finances and stability, while keeping that social and outward contribution? And that's how I came into Artila, and actually also classmercial.com, which is an e-learning.
So if I just hold you, let me just hold you quickly
please.
there. So this is where the pivot happened. So it happened at the time of the UN, where obviously you felt that things weren't quite right. But you also realize you couldn't go back to how when you was before your family situation, you couldn't go back to just helping people because obviously you still need to make an income. Now that must have been quite difficult to actually put together because your natural instinct, your nature, in Buddha, we call it our Buddhahood, wants to just help. How easy or difficult was that to turn it on its head, knowing that your natural instinct is just to help? What made you focus and be consistent in the way to do what you needed to do without doing your natural?
Yeah, it was actually very difficult. It was almost, for me, it was almost impossible. So it was not my will. It was not my will that made the change. It was the harsh reality of life. When it came at a point that I did not have enough money to pay my rent, and I have a young child, and then the electricity was cut, and I started to say, at those moments, maybe when you need help, and sometimes help doesn't come immediately, so I cannot afford to put my family at this level of risk anymore. I feel so then in my mind, a switch had to slow down or like regulate the will of helping others with actually helping myself and my family first. And then I started to like build a model, an internal model that says that a bit like like I think Jesus said, God only helps those who help themselves. Something like that in the Bible. So actually I just implemented that. I say, there is this old saying, this old wisdom, let me apply it to myself. I help myself, I get myself out of this kind of possible risks, and then once I have those minimum backups, then I can choose what kind of business I want to run that will fulfill both objectives: my internal self minimum fulfillment objective, financially speaking, and then the outward. And that's how it changed my selection of what kind of work I want to do, what kind of business I want to launch, and what kind of business I do not want to touch, or what kind of projects, even though very attractive from a development perspective, I do not want to get involved in it because it can hurt me without creating the benefit for society that even I want to have. So I had to make that hard step back decision and put to myself some rules of engagement.
So if I just ask you, so now I'm starting to feel you, and I totally understand you because I'm the same way. I naturally just want to help. So my instincts is to help. But I've been in a position just like you where I've had to, my back's against the wall, my family needs feeding, I can't keep on helping, I've got to do the hard thing. So I totally get you. So now I appreciate how hard it was, but there must have been some kind of fundamental underneath that helped you spur away and push through the difficulties that you had. So I'm guessing it was some kind of faith or some kind of religion or spiritual or something, because what tends to happen is when we're going against ourselves, our natural selves, you need that extreme amount of, push. So where does that come from?
Yeah, so I think this comes from it's a little bit our first discussion. It comes from the spiritual experiences that I had when I was young, and then later in my life, where I somehow discovered that nothing is impossible, and then I escaped the trap of dualism, and I escaped the trap of the first experience reality.
Okay, so just take us back there. So what is dualism? Just explain, because most people won't know that.
So duality is basically this natural predisposition that we have as humans to frame the universe or to frame our experience of the world between two things. Duality, two things: good and bad, hot and cold, nice, not nice, black and white, dark and lighted. Like this is how, at least I felt, I grew up in France. So I carry two cultures: the French culture because I'm born there, and then the Moroccan Muslim. So the French Catholic culture and the Moroccan Muslim culture. I grew up in these two pillars, let's say. And I already forgot what I started with.
No, so basically, it's the two sides of the same coin. So you
Yes,
started
duality.
with that, and where we're trying to get through, we're trying to push through.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for recalling me. So I was talking about dualism, and both of these experiences of these two cultures and / religions, both of them had their own form of dualism trap. And even the non-religious side of the French culture, where you grew up, and then in your education, you're basically exposed to Darwinism, the Freud psychoanalysis approach, and then also the Cartesian Descartes. I think, therefore I am. So all these educational frameworks, both cultural and let's say religious, and also eclectic or non-religious, they offered a frame which was in between two things.
Okay.
Whatever it is, angels and the devil, good and bad, they all offered that. Creation versus evolution. You can find always this dualism in
That's
almost
true.
any subject.
Yin and yang, same thing in Chinese.
Yes, the same idea. But the yin and yang has that little bit of, even on the extreme of each side, you feel a little bit of the other side. So that creates like a feedback loop, which is interesting. So when I broke through this dualism, then I realized that there is actually only one force in the universe.
Well, okay, this is interesting. I'm with bated breath.
Yes, there is no such thing as dualism. So dualism, what I felt when I broke through, is that it is a human construct, and it is maybe for, let's say, projects or systems of control. Let's say a government or an institution wants to control the evolution of the mind of the human. The best way to do it is to put them in any form of dualism, because that is the prison, or that is the framework where you can keep them under control without spending too much efforts to control them.
Okay, this is interesting. Okay, take us
through. I can develop that. So let's say, for example, unfortunately, religions, they're supposed to help us release ourselves and improve ourselves internally and so on. But also religions are used by government or political projects to format or to guide people against their own goodwill or against their own good. Even
so
sometimes
a form of control, basically.
It's a form of control.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying the religion is bad or good. That's also dualism. I'm saying the use of religion, the way it is applied within a political objective, which actually has nothing to do with spiritualism. It's just an objective of controlling a certain mass of people to do a certain things that they would not be naturally inclined to do.
Okay.
For example, pay taxes. which human is inclined to pay taxes? Not from a natural perspective. Not much of us.
Yeah.
We would need a legal framework and some form of punishment and some form of marketing to tell us if you don't pay taxes, it's bad. If you pay taxes, it's good. That's the duality, or at least the attempt to put it in duality. So that's what I noticed, is that dualism is a fantastic tool for implementing control at a lower cost and on a population or on a culture or whatever, even a civilization.
Okay, interesting.
So that was my first feeling, is that I need to escape dualism. I need to first escape the religion that I inherited from my parents and the culture and religion that I experienced and inherited from my natal country, my country of birth, France, and my religion, my family religion, and my religion also now is Islam. But now I take Islam in a different way, and I try to explain that.
Okay.
So once you break away from all the frameworks that you have been growing in, then you can see the world for what it is. So there's no good and bad. There's no hot and cold. You understand that there is a spectrum, and you may move within that spectrum, and the spectrum is 360 degrees. That means that when you're complaining about something, at the extreme of it, there is actually the goodness of that same spectrum.
Okay, just let's talk about that, because we were talking about dualism, and it doesn't really exist. It's a form of control, but the spectrum could be seen very similar. How is that different?
Yeah, the spectrum is the natural thing that the universe uses for discovery
Okay.
of an experience. So, for example, let's take our eyes. When what we can observe in the world is that small spectrum from ultraviolet to infrared. Yeah,
that's right.
So now we are going to base our whole experience in that little bandwidth of vibrations. Yeah. So if you structure your soul and your inner self based on what you can observe in that limited spectrum of light, you can imagine that your internal experience and outward experience is going to be also limited, because you basically are not able to see the full spectrum, which is 360 degrees, because you're stuck in that little angle of it.
Okay. I get you.
Now imagine you lose your eyes. The physical eyes and the retina input, then you actually will probably be able to break through, because now you're not how you call it, when we have horses, we put for them those eyelids,
blinkers.
Yeah, so now you don't have the blinkers. Now the horse sees 360 degrees.
I see. Yeah.
So what happened when the horse sees 360 degrees? He doesn't listen to his human.
He doesn't focus.
Yeah, he doesn't focus because his field of view just expanded. He can't just run straight when you tell the horse to run straight and it's not for his own benefit neither. It's the same with the human. Once we take out those side leads, I forgot the name. Blinkers. We become like wild, but also we become like explorers of our own self.
Yes.
And once you can have that 360 views, then you realize that what I was calling infrared, I was saying, oh, infrared is bad, it's too hot. Yeah.
Yes.
And then I discovered that after infrared, there is more hot.
Yes. Yeah.
Until it becomes cold again. And I say, hey, it's actually not an end. It's not an end in itself. That heat or that pain is not an end. It's just a stage in the movement, and the movement is circular. So to explain you my breakthrough in like programming language, it's like when you discover that things are not just sequential.
Yes.
But they are curve in nature.
So it's basically like a color wheel. It literally goes round from one color to another, like a color wheel.
Yes,
basically.
It's a color wheel, and like you said, a wheel is circular.
That's right.
So the universe is built on circles of time. When you have a loop of time, it's a circle. It's a circle or a sphere. So then that's what I realize is that the universe is vectorial. Does it make sense in English?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's vectorial, and once you understand that it's vectorial, then you understand that it's fractal. So a small cycle can be repeated in a smaller environment, smaller, or in a larger scope.
So it's a bit like having a framework within a framework within a framework. It's a bit like crystals, right? You're snowing. If you look really close, the crystals, and there's more you zoom in, there's more crystals, and it just goes on forever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly. So that fractal loop is actually a circular movement, let's say. It's not a sequential with hard stops. So that's how I discovered that life was actually not, because dualism somehow, in my experience, was forces us or inclines us to have a sequential approach to life.
Yeah.
Like you say, for me to be happy, I need $10,000, and then I need a car, and then I need a house, and then you build that sequence of events or objectives that will say, I am now happy. And then it's a linear approach. And sometimes you feel frustrated because life is not linear. Sometimes it slows down, it goes backwards, and then it comes back. It's not the right time, it's not the right context. So the universe reorient the things, and then it's not going to happen in the order that you made in your mind. And that's where I felt freedom. I felt like, hey, if I don't stuck myself into the linear model of sequencing and dualism, then actually there's no reason to be unhappy,
So Mohamed, let me, because this is obviously a deep subject. This is something that could actually we could do a series of podcasts on this, because I know we're just hitting the server. So I'm just going to try and keep it simple so people understand. So how did you come across from dualism into this? What hit you to see this? Was it something that you discussed with something? You had a near life experience? Was it something you read? How? Because most people be thinking, how do you physically know this? What specifically happened for you to go from one to the next? How do you get knowledge? In other words,
yes, I think the underlying thing is a deep thirst of experimental truth.
Okay.
Like since I was small, I did not accept what people tell me or what I see or what I hear until I can put it into task, like with whatever means I have. I want to verify the truth.
So you want the
like
proof?
I want, yeah, even if it's not a material proof, but I want a personal experience of that truth.
Okay.
Because I understood that some people experience the same thing in a different way and build their own truth. So
That's right.
I already understood that the truth that Eli may have sounds good, but then Eli life and Eli context, when he experimented that truth, I don't have that context and I don't have the Eli background. And so I knew that it was a perspective, that truth was a perspective. And I knew when I was young that unless you go and question that initial truth, which can be very helpful as a model to start with, I don't deny that, but ultimately you cannot really call it a truth. For me, it was a hypothesis until I put it to task and verify that hypothesis is universal truth or is a constructed truth.
I get you.
Yeah. So when very young, I started to like always keep this critical mind of seeking, asking for truth. What is it that is behind that thing? What is it that can I go and touch it? Can I go and feel it? Can I taste it? Like with my senses, can I go and experiment it and double check if this is beneficial or not? So that's, I think, what drive me to this realization.
So you've always had a character from when you was a young boy, where there's always something more. There's always something out there. What is there? And then you would go from the next pylon to the next. Yeah, and you was always built like that. Was that the case, or did you just start, something happened and you thought that, you know what, something's not right here?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I would not say I'm born with it. Maybe, yeah. I don't have the answer, but I would say it's a curiosity that I entertained. I chose to entertain it.
Right.
I think it's in everyone. But then whether you choose and you prioritize that you're going to dig that or not. And I chose at a very early age to dig it out. I don't know why I chose, but I think there was a funny event that happened to me maybe when I was 4 or 5 years old.
Okay. Break it down for me.
Yes, and probably many people also felt that. So I'm born in my family is rather poor because we are immigrants from Morocco and we arrived in France in the 60s. My grandparents arrived in France in the 1960s, late 50s, early 60s, I think. And then I'm born in late 70s. I'm born in 77.
Okay.
So at that time, because we were poor and we were, the first wave of immigrants, or let's say the first generation of French-born Moroccans, or maybe the second generation.
Yes.
We were really like at the lower level of society, of the French society.
Okay.
So we could enjoy the French society advantages, and it was I think common in Western Europe. We call it les 30 glorieuses, the 30 glorious years after World War II, where the economy was so good, everything was to be rebuilt. So there was no unemployment. There was finances for rebuilding the nations. So there was a lot of opportunities, and because our families came from Morocco, which was like a more scarce environment.
Yes.
In the French environment, it was so much more abundance for us, even though we were like on the poorest or the lowest scale. But
there was more opportunity to help create abundance,
and also like a higher quality of life, better infrastructure. French families, let's say the French traditional families, they were changing their home interior and then giving to our families like whole sets of sofa that were still perfect.
Wow.
They were giving us TVs that were functional. There was this very nice vibe of,
So
hey guys, we now get better.
there was a support structure out there. So when you was over there, there was a support structure out there which helped you. Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Like the people who integrated to the French society earlier than us, or let's say the French people who were able to go to the next level of comfort.
Okay.
They were very nice and very sharing. What it still has value, but now they upgraded. So there was like this. I felt this transfer of like donations, like help. Without anything they didn't ask anything in return. Unfortunately, it changed later on when economy became harsh.
Okay.
Then people started to only think about themselves more and more. But that was where I grew up. So we had very little, but we were, I would say, happy. And sorry again with the flu today, I'm losing my loop. Can you remind me where I was going?
Yeah. No. Because we was just literally just talking about, how you really drive through, when things get really hard. So it's like I said, I took you back from when you was a boy because I was quite curious how you've got that entrepreneurship, that kind of drive,
Yes.
where that inspiration, and you use your faith and your spiritualism to actually drive you through. So this is why I was trying to find out. Well,
now I got it.
You've just established that you think that people in general have it, but what I've established when speaking with people, it's something within a given time that snaps, that makes a person do and kick in to do these things. Does that make sense? And in your case, you remember going way back in the days when you was 4, and you felt like you was in an age of abundance and people giving to you. Now, I would suggest, because you experienced that, you, or partially, wanted to give to other people because you felt that, and you gained that, and you saw what it did for your family. And it was probably a natural thing to you also want to do the same thing as you got older.
Yes, naturally, and definitely. And now thank you for helping me to remember what I wanted to say, where it snapped. And that was one of the first snaps I had when I was 4 or 5 years old. So I was trying to give you the context so that maybe it is more understandable. So that's the society I grew up in.
Yes.
And at the time that I was 5 years old, because again, what I realized is that nothing is valuable unless you understand the context in which it happened.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with that.
Like every knowledge or human experience, you really need to get the context. So that was the context. The early 80s, 1990s in the south of France, where it was like a very good moment from economical and social terms and peace among people and so on. So it was a very favorable moment. But at the same time, there was this, like the French government was also establishing a new form of control of their population.
Okay.
Basically, that is when different laws came in to where the French government, my experience or my analysis now, as of today, of what happened now that I try to understand, is that Western Europe went through this age of saying, okay, now we're rebuilding Europe after the war. Okay. We made terrible mistakes, in World War I, World War II. We still have fresh memories of these mistakes. We know what the human is capable of, good and bad, and we just went out of it. So how are we going to structure this new society of people who survived World War II? Like, what are we going to allow people to do, and where are we going to lock them in so that no diversion such as fascist movements can take hold?
Yes.
Yeah. And you have to remember the context of Europe at that time is that at least Western Europe just went out of almost at least few centuries of Eugenism. Is it in English? It makes sense? Eugenism?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
So Eugenism is this movement where every nation was trying to claim that their race is superior to the other race. The Italians and the Romans are superior to the French.
Okay.
The Spanish superior to the Germans
Yep.
superior to the French.
I
So
understand.
it was not just the German Nazi that were doing that. The French, the British, all of them were doing that.
Yeah, at the height of power, they tend to do that.
Yes, yeah, and I was lucky to study. I was in my first studies where I went to University of Sports, and we studied the history of sports.
Okay.
And it's actually very revealing on the human nature, because let's say the Western European countries wanted to revive the Olympic Games in the spirit of how the Greeks, they used to do Olympic Games.
Mhm.
And the Olympic Games in the Greek ancient context, it was actually spiritual. It was the physical body of, mens sana in corpore sano, like
Right.
a sane spirit in a sane body.
Okay.
That's the ancient Roman Greek theme. But the Greeks, they were more advanced than us in terms of, I think, to my understanding, and later on, the Greeks, they were at another level at their time in understanding the human nature. And then the Western European countries, and where I grew up, they used that concept, but without understanding it fully. And then there is this actor, there is this famous French writer called Pierre de Coubertin,
Okay.
who wrote a book and then revived the new Olympic Games.
Okay, that's
And
interesting.
in the first,
Something I didn't know.
Olympic Games, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And why I like it is because it's really like telling us the state of the mind of the people.
Okay.
So the advertised dogma, or the advertised values of Olympic Games was, we are all equal, we are all good people.
Okay.
Let's compete. And
Great.
let's use sports, to enhance our bodies and minds and so on.
Uh-huh.
But then when they were writing their essays, and when they were building the French team to the Olympic Games, and then when the Germans were building their team to the Olympic Games, and the Italians,
Uh-huh.
then you realize that the objective of going to the Olympic Games is to show that the French body, or the
Yeah.
French DNA,
Uh-huh.
was physically better than the Italian DNA or the German DNA. And
Yeah.
then the Germans were sending their best athletes
Yep.
to show that the German Aryan race
Yes.
was better than the other races.
Yeah.
So then you realize that this is a bunch of racists who use some very nice keywords from ancient Greeks, and then they don't even understand them. But that's the history of Europe at that time, is that it was already for a few hundred years they had this thing in the human mind that is called eugenism.
Okay.
Even in the way that they were mixing dog races to create new dog races.
Yes.
Yeah. So they had this is my understanding. They had this approach of demonstrating that my DNA baggage or capital
Uh-huh.
is better than the other DNA capital. And
Yeah.
you have to remember that at that time, the European society was less diverse than now.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you would have a country that would have 90% of people who are Slavic, and they're all Slav.
Yes.
So of course, like that Slavic nation is going to want to demonstrate that the Slavic blood, or Slavic whatever,
Yep.
is superior to the Germanic
Yes.
tribes, or another group, or the Celtics, like in the context of the UK.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the Britons or the Roman inheritance
Mhm.
will go against the Slavic, the Welsh,
Yes.
So that's how Europe went out of that period. So when I grew up in the 80s, I
Okay.
could still feel that little thread of it that is still happening, even though after it made the disaster of World War I and World War II,
Mhm.
I felt that there was a form of control, and there was still a form of creating a layer of deception
Mhm.
for the human populace. So I was 5 and I was watching TV, and at that time TV was a one-way programming language. It's
Yeah.
like what the programmers send to you,
Of
and
course.
you sit and you watch, and you get indoctrinated, or you get educated, both ways.
Yeah.
So I was watching this this series for kids that is called Casimir. I think maybe you had that in the UK. Casimir was like an alien kind of crocodile, a big body. It was like a character.
Okay, I didn't see that. But who knows?
Yeah, I'll try to link. I'll try to link to you. I was watching that and almost every day with some other programs for kids. And then at one point as a kid, I thought they're trying to program me. I don't know how the thought came, but at that time I thought.
So hold on. So at the age of 4 or 5, you was actually thinking that way.
Yeah.
Oh.
I can't explain it, but when I was watching TV, I was thinking something is trying to get into my head from the TV.
Yes.
Something is trying to get into my heart. I feel that hand or that tool being like inserted in my soul, in me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just felt an intrusive action.
Yes.
Hard to explain. But when I was small, I was just feeling that like the TV is swallowing a part of me and putting stuff in me at the same time.
So you had a natural instinct to know that TV somehow was controlling you with the images and the sounds that was going on, and something wasn't right, and you just had that natural instinct.
Yeah, I felt that pull and that push.
Yeah,
I felt like there is something behind the TV, the programmers, whatever it is.
Yeah,
something is trying to do. Someone, I should say,
trying
someone
to manipulate you, basically.
is trying to do something. Yeah. So I stepped back as a kid. I said, at that time, for me, it was boring. It was not like good and bad. It was like, damn, I don't like this. And it's boring because I could like see the next scene of that movie for kids.
Well, it was predictable. When you was watching it,
it was predictable. Exactly. And then as it became predictable, it became boring.
Yeah, of course it did.
So then I stepped back and then I looked at the window of my home into the outside, and I saw people, enjoying the terrace cafe, the French way of life, like the Italian way of life, sunny terraces, enjoying their orange juice and coffee, and people going around their life. And then I was just looking at people sitting in the cafe and then getting a nice cafe and then paying the server, and then the server comes and he's happy and he gets a tip. Yeah, I saw that scene from the window.
Okay. Wow.
So as a kid, I thought, hey, this is nice. What is that? People are happy. They're happy by giving money. So I thought, why they give money and they're happy? So I didn't have much concepts about money as a kid. Yeah.
But you knew just by the action when you looked out that window, something was right. So so from that point of view, was you the kind of kid, right? Okay, the TV is not stimulating me. Something's not right here. So did you try to look into the mind of other people because you weren't being stimulated? Now, just bear with me here. Was it a situation that you tended to pick up a magazine that was much older than you would normally look at a magazine? You're so much age, but you're looking at your parents' magazine or books or whatever else, and then you were stimulated that way. What did you do to stimulate yourself, knowing that TV was predictable and something wasn't right? So, and I'm just trying to go through your. No,
it's an interesting, because thank you for guiding, because you revive my memories, and when I look at it, I see it as really was a big blessing.
Yeah.
So two things happened, and let me give you a bit of more context.
Okay.
So my father was illiterate. He could barely write his name and sign. My mom went to school maybe to the level of, I don't know, until 11 years old. So she could write and read Arabic and a little bit of French. So let's say that the academic background of my family was almost non-existent in the French benchmark.
Okay. This is interesting.
So I couldn't find, there was no, beside the Quran in my house, there was no other book.
Okay.
Literally no other book to learn from. And also because I have dyslexia, and I didn't know I had dyslexia when I was young, I could not finish a book. I can just read like the beginning, the end, and then I need summer, and then I dive into certain pages, and then I fall asleep.
But you had a certain amount of time. You could only read for 5, 10, 15 minutes.
Exactly.
I'm just.
I had a very short span.
I feel you. Go on. Yeah, this is interesting.
So your question is interesting, because you're right. There is somewhere where we're going to drive from knowledge, or we're going to find an opening.
Yes.
to stimulate and also feed that thirst that we had. So two things happened. Because I could not find it in my house, I knew that it was outside of my house or my home.
Wow.
So the first thing, just to finish the example of the French cafe terrace.
So to stop you, are we still talking at the age of 5? This is how you felt?
5. We're still at 5, yeah.
That's some great thinking as a 5-year-old. All right, go on. Please continue.
Yeah, so at that time, when I looked out the window, I just knew there was something to learn from outside.
Okay.
From life outside of my home.
Yes.
And my comfort. So at that time, so there was an intrigue, you know. I saw a person coming, ordering it was like orange juice and a coffee.
Wow. Okay.
Sitting down, enjoying the sun. I think it was a couple. And you know, this takes like 15 minutes. I was just watching them. And then after that, they enjoyed the drink. Then when the waiter came, I saw that transaction. I saw the transaction for the first time. I see it and I realized it as a kid.
Yes.
I saw a commercial transaction.
Yes.
I saw a value given by someone and another person giving money for that value. And I saw both of them smiling. So I said, hey, what is that thing that makes them both happy?
Great.
Yeah. So as a kid, I thought, oh, that's money. Yeah, I know about money, but that means that you can give something to people and they can give you money.
Yes.
And they will be happy and you're happy. So you know what happened? I don't know how it came to my mind, but I instantly thought, I'm going to sell my drawings.
Wow. Okay.
So my mom was working some tough jobs of cleaning. You know, she was a janitor cleaning. So she would lock me in the house for whole days, and she would buy me crayons and paper to keep me busy, because she knew that TV after a while bores me.
Yeah.
So I had a pack of like 20 A4 pages, white pages, and I had a bunch of crayons. So I drew like 3 of them. I drew like, you know, by the way, I still have the same drawing skills at 46 compared to my 5 years old.
Well, you obviously have a passion for your drawing, so why not?
Yeah, it's very bad drawing. My daughter is making fun of me. So that same drawing, like I would draw birds in the sky with a cloud and the sun, and a house in the green lavender field. That's what I see in France when I grew up in Provence, is lavender fields and old houses. Yeah. So I would draw that, but that was exactly the scenery of what the people see and they are proud of in that region of France. So I drew like, I don't remember, like maybe 3 or 5 pages with slight variations.
Okay.
And then, so I had my pack, and then I went at the bottom right of the page and I put 1 franc.
Okay.
At that time, there was no euros, it was French franc.
Okay.
So, and 1 franc, you know, for a kid, I thought, damn, it's a lot of money. Because the only experience I had with money was buying sweets.
Yes, of course.
Which were a few cents. So for me, 1 franc or like 10 franc is like robbing a bank, you know, in terms of amount of money. So I thought, am I overpricing? And then my mind said, you don't know, just go.
Wow.
So I went with my drawings. I went out to that cafe. I went to the people. I said, hello, sir, would you like to buy a drawing? And I would say, on the 5 people that I asked, 4 of them bought my drawings.
Wow.
So that experience was amazing, because as I was like proposing my offer, I was looking at their eyes, you know, and I was kind of like expecting a rejection. Like, what are they going to do? And some, they said, no, thank you, you know, in a nice way. But some people, they look at me in the eyes, you know, and then some people, I understood that they bought it because of something else than the material value. Yeah, I saw in their eyes a smile, and then some people, they told me, hey, this is what my daughter used to draw when she was 5. You remind me of her. Let me buy it. And they bought because it just reminded them to a souvenir of their own daughter or their own kid. And they bought that. And they gave me 1 franc. They didn't discuss the price, nothing. Then I went to the next person. The next person said, this is actually cute. So it was not an emotional buying from a souvenir, but it was like they just find it cute that the little kid is doing that. And then there was another person that asked me, why do you do that, in a nice way? They were just curious, why would the small kid of, I don't remember, I think I was 5 maybe, why would the 5 years old that, you know, barely can read and write do such a thing? So I was just telling them, I was bored watching TV. They say, oh, good. They encourage me.
I tell you what, Mohamed, this is amazing, because I'm glad that we went back to when you was 4 years old, and I'll tell you why. It goes to show that, number one, you still felt abundance, all right, regardless that you didn't have money. That's number one. And most entrepreneurs, they feel a lack, even when they have or don't have money. That's number one. And two is that you had, even when you did your picture, and it was, you know, so much that you was going to sell it for, but you thought, oh, that's a bit too much, you still carried on and said, we'll see what happens. Most people don't do that. What they'll do is that they will just, I'm not quite comfortable with that, I'm going to try and make it perfect. I think it's going to be that. But, you know, just to get on with it and see what happens. And a lot of people make that mistake where they try to make things perfect, instead of just seeing what happens and make it perfect along the way, because you'll know by the reactions you get with people coming down the line. And then on top of that, the last thing that I can see with your entrepreneurship from the age of 4 or 5 is that people bought into you. You were personable, right? Straight away, as you've said, it wasn't the picture. It was because you actually looked them in the eye. You were yourself. You were straight as a die. They knew you needed the money, and you was being honest. And I say this to a lot of people, you know, people buy into people. They don't really buy into your, you know, what you've got to sell. First of all, they buy into trust. If they don't trust you, they're not going to buy the product or service from you. And the more you want to actually charge, the more trust you've got to evolve.
Definitely, yes.
You had those three things.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky to experience them, let's say, even if at that time I didn't fully understand them, but you know, it kind of attracted me. And I think what you're saying is exactly what I also felt or realized when I was watching some videos from startups accelerators like Y Combinator and so on. They actually, what they tell to startup owners is like, keep it simple, go to the market, get the feedback from the market. Don't try, like you said, to perfect it and then you never bring it to the market. So that's what I was doing when I was very young. I thought and I knew my drawings were ugly. I really knew. I knew they were ugly because my brothers.
What were you trying to do? You trying to con the people with ugly drawings?
No, I was just curious. Like, can I replicate the orange juice? Because what I saw from the scene is that orange juice maybe is not perfect, because some oranges are more sweet than others. I was just curious, if he can sell an orange juice, I can sell a drawing. And also, like, I don't know why, but I thought it is valuable to be rejected.
Because
so I was not afraid.
I suppose because you learn from rejection, you learn how to be better.
Exactly.
Because business or even things in life, it's a natural thing to be rejected. You never become perfect overnight. You have to go through rejection to know what works.
It is part of the journey. So because I didn't have fear of being rejected. Although I felt, unfortunately, as I grew up in France, and you see my color doesn't look like very dark, but in the French culture at that time, I was like a black man, let's say, compared to this. So I had many experiences of, I would call it folklore racism. Where the kids of my age, they were like rejecting me because of my color, and they were saying that my darker skin color was dirt. I had that as a kid.
Did that happen at the beginning stage, or as you got older? Okay.
No, like it was. I experienced it from the very young age in school. You know, even as kids, you don't understand what's going on. Why the other kids that you see same as you, they say that you're dirty because you have a bit of a darker skin. And it was not even a big difference, you know, like between my skin and Caucasian skin is at least for me, is a very little difference. But I felt that kind of being different, being rejected because you're different.
Mm.
So I knew there was that weird thing. So I knew that also when I'm going to go out and try to do something, some people, they may also react to who I am as a kid, because we were the foreigners at that age. We were just the first immigrant wave.
Okay.
So before the North Africans, the wave that came and integrate was the last one to come was the Portuguese.
Okay.
And they just integrated. So the Portuguese were feeling less of that, how you call it, rejection. Before the Portuguese was the Spanish wave. So my name and the Italian waves. So those were the immigrants, but all those immigrant families, they were Europeans in a way, and Caucasian majority. So we were there was no black families. There was one Asian family because of the Vietnam, the Indochina War, where the French were in Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia. So there was one Vietnamese family. So we were the only two non-European origin immigrant families.
So it's a bit of a tough time. How did you cope with the racism that you had to go through? Because obviously you were quite an intuitive boy from the point of view you could feel that things weren't correct and weren't right, and you did what had to be done. So how did you cope? Or was it easy enough for you to cope through? It is what it is, and you just carried on. How did you cope?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it didn't disturb me. I don't know why, but it didn't disturb me because first, I did not experience racism from adults. I experienced racist behaviors from kids who were programmed by their parents.
Yes, I get you.
So those kids were expressing what I would say racism traits.
Yeah.
But they were kids like me. We were playing, we were laughing, And then from time to time, they would like, "I don't give you my hand. No, don't give. No, your hand is dirty."
Yeah.
And actually, one time I asked a small girl, a beautiful little girl, blonde with blue eyes, adorable little girl, why she was like pushing my hands, rejecting my hands once the teacher turns her back, because the teacher said, "Okay, you guys do a circle and hold each other's hand," and then it felt that she was beside me, so I was holding her hand.
Okay.
When the teacher turned, she like, like this.
Yeah.
I told her, "Hey, why do you do that?" She said, "My mom told me that people who have darker skin is because they're dirty, they don't shower."
Yeah.
So even as a kid, I thought, "Oh, your parents told you this?" She said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, Mohammed." I said, "Yeah, no problem."
It's very sad.
So like that innocence of the kids.
Yes.
Even if it's a bad thing. So it happened to me a few times that other friends, there was like some twins who were they were Caucasian but origin from Spain. So they had a Spanish family name in France, which at that time was like a bit less than the French name.
Yeah.
But they were integrated. So one day they come. We love to play together.
Okay.
But when their parents come to pick them up, they ask me to stay away from them. And then they saw that it was bothering me and I didn't understand it. So one day they both, the two twins, they came, they say, "Mohammed, please, our parents, they don't like it that we play with darker skinned kids. So just when they come at 4:30 to pick us up, just please stay away, but we really like you." So this like kids to kids honesty kind of made it like so much easier to just let it fly.
Yes.
So that's what I call folkloric racism. It didn't really hurt me. Actually, I think on the contrary, it probably exposed to me that there was a change between the old generation and the new generation, and that once you bond as a human, even if there is an education that tells you the other one is bad, I could feel that they like me, I like them, and we trusted each other. So together as kids, we created this layer of protection from our families or from society. So we play football together, we have fun, and then let's act in this way when the parents are here.
And
it's very weird,
because I've had a few conversations in the past, some in-depth conversation. I've found out really the racism whole situation with that, and it comes from parents, in a way, and we're not. It's not exactly, but in a way we're born blank, and we're not. But we're born with just a way to be able to be like sponges to take in information. And if we're told by our parents, elders, the community, this is bad, you're going to come with that mindset. And what I learned is when it came to racism, it had to do with the mindset of the parents, unfortunately, and it wasn't down to the kids, which you've just spoken about, which is really sad. But it is,
and not only racism, Eli. So that's why also, like, maybe because of this experience and an early breakthrough of it, I never considered that racism would stop me in anything that I want to do. I knew it was there, but I knew that this is not going to stop me. It has no power of itself. And also, I discovered that there is other biases than racism.
Okay.
So I also discovered that because you're young,
you're
underestimated. So this has nothing to do with the race. It's just the age. So I discovered, hey, the age is also a matter of discrimination. And then I discovered the gender is a matter of discrimination. Then I discovered that the way of thinking is a matter of discrimination. Then I discovered that your political views are also a parameter of discrimination. So once I discovered that the humans may use any attribute as a separation, then I thought, well, then the skin color is just one of them. It's not like the thing that is going to block me. I'm going to be discriminated for so many other reasons. I just have to deal with it.
See.
Yeah, because I noticed that sometimes some of my friends, they would fall into that. And I think it's harder for Black people because the hardest racism was against the Black people, because the darker you are, the more you take it's that was my experience. My Senegalese friends, oh my friend, they suffered much more than us. Because we have the same culture with Senegal and Gambia and Mauritania. It's the same religion, same culture, so we really like have a close community with the Western African, let's call it Northwest Africa. It's a solid community. So when if I would complain I got level 1 of racism, my Senegalese friend, he got level 7 or 8 or 9.
I get you.
Yeah. So then, like, it helped me in my mind say, hey, this is all constructed, and this is all, you're always unhappy or happy because you compare to someone else. But when I compare to my Senegalese friends, I'm
it comes down to perception, doesn't it? It's
a level of perception and comparison.
So would it be fair to say that you had an inbuilt way of gratitude? So you'd have a form of gratitude saying, hey, I'm glad A, B, and C because so-and-so is going through this. And I'm glad I'm in this position. So you had an already built-in sense, or a created built-in sense as you got older of gratitude would that be fair to say?
No, definitely. I had gratitude, and also I had still that thirst of going and doing the experiment, even if it carries risks.
Yeah.
And also I learned slowly, maybe, and at a very young age, I learned to forgive.
Wow.
I learned to forgive to my friends.
Okay, let's stick with that, because that's a very powerful thing, learning to forgive, because there's many adults out there that can't do that. Now,
it's very hard.
You know that that's a powerful thing to do. How did you learn to forgive?
So I learned to forgive because
what happened for you to be on the path to be consistent learning to forgive, because certain things would happen in your life. So what was that change that made, I've got to learn to start forgiving because of A, B, and C?
Yes. So what helped me at that age, at that time when I was growing up in south of France, was playing football.
Okay.
Soccer, I think in English.
At what age?
So for example,
what age?
So I played. So I mean, both cultures, the French and the Moroccan culture, they both loved football, soccer at that time. So like I would like every time we have a break in school and stuff, somebody has a ball and we play football, in the court or outside the school. So we would have fights, like physical fights with my classmates or fights because of, I don't know, some racism or even like just some misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Even if it's not it's not necessary. Actually, the racism events were very small in numbers. We
Yeah.
would fight for much more stupid things.
I get you. Typical children's thing.
Yeah, so we would like, in one day you have like 5-6 misunderstanding with other kids, but then when we go again and play again together, and then we score together, and then sometimes you're against that team, and sometimes he's in your team. Or,
Yes.
And then you say, hey, you're actually a teammate. So when we play football and like we're sweating and we both of us, even though we fight in the morning,
yes,
now we are in the same team and we score together.
Okay.
And then you hug each other and say, "Yeah, dude," and give five. That was how I learned to forgive.
And
Because
that's how you learn to forgive consistently, no matter what, no matter how big the problem became after then. You just learned that at school it was one situation, then you were forced at playtime to do another thing, and you just naturally started doing that forgive situation. So you started taking that into your life, into more serious situations as you got older. It was a natural occurrence for you to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think what you develop as you grow with these kind of experiences, even if I didn't verbalize it in my head that this was a mechanism that I was using to forgive.
Yeah.
But later on, you like now that, let's say I got more experiences and I learned about social sciences, psychology, I would say that like delayed gratification is something that is very hard for the human to grasp. So is the delayed forgiving or delayed realization that you should forgive. So now let's call it this way. It's very hard to forgive when you cannot build in your mind that there is going to be a time and a situation where that person is going to be in my team.
Okay.
Because if you stay in, he was my opponent and we had this and we fought.
Yeah.
And if you don't picture in your mind that one day the situation is going to change and we're going to play in the same team, then you're not opening your mind to a potential evolution that you're going to be able to forgive him because you're going to have another experience. You will not forget. I'm not saying you forget the harm. We're saying that you will be able to remember the harm and then get an opportunity to forgive and create new human-to-human good experiences with that individual.
Okay, so let me get this concept correct. So if I break it down, so basically what it is that how you learn to forgive is that you have an understanding that at some stage you're going to have to be working with this person one-to-one, and you've got to have a good underlying relationship. So you might as well forgive and move on, not necessarily forget, but forgive and move on, because there's a potential that you're going to be working with this person in some small or large way. Is that right? That concept in your head, is that how it works?
That's correct. And that was making even more sense because we were living in a very small city where everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So potentially in 1 year, in 2 years, we're going to be together in something.
Okay.
Like I would say, any kid of my age in that small city in the south of France,
yes,
we were bound to do something together again.
Okay.
We're going to go to the same high school. We're going to go to the same, there's only like 3 sports clubs in the city.
Yeah.
There's only 1 cinema.
I see.
We bump into each other again. So it was easier, I think, for my mind, as compared if I was living in London or New York.
Yeah.
And then we would get lost into the amount of people, and I cannot picture that I would be again with that person.
Yeah.
Somehow, I think the space-time proximity.
Yes.
Was easier for the mind of a kid to see it coming. Of course, now when I'm 40 or 30, I know that we travel, we can move countries, and I will get another opportunity at a larger scale. But as a kid, being in a small kind of village environment, that I think made it easier.
Right.
Now that I think about it.
Okay, so what is the power of forgiveness? Why? And what is the power of forgiveness?
Well, it's I would say it's a double power. It's a double power. Well, first, it's a relief for you, for us, for the forgiveness giver. It's a relief because when you forgive, you also relinquish the bad feeling or the bad memory that you were like repeating in your head and your mind and your soul, and actually draining your energy.
Yeah.
When you commemorate those bad moments.
Okay.
So when you forgive, you allow for the hard drive to write a new memory about that same person, and a happy one. Yeah.
And it keeps
So
you in
that's
that happy gratitude state for you, for you personally. So not only, okay, you may have helped that person, but more importantly, you've kept yourself in that happy, positive state to move on to the next situation. Would that be fair to say?
That's fair to say. And also my brain was able to match the face of a person to another experience that was now positive. There was that link in the mind. Like before we have a good experience, and I let's say we had a fight and you broke my, and you how you call it when you make the punch in the eye and then it becomes black eye.
Eye.
Let's say you were in my school and we had a fight and you gave me a black eye.
Yes.
You Eli, and you're in my class.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we don't talk to each other for like 6 months. Yeah. So my last souvenir of you is the black eye. So I see Eli, I see black eye, and I remember the pain. And then let's say at the end of the year we have this our school against another school. Now we are in the same team. And now in that goal, you're the one to pass me the ball so that I score.
Perfect.
Now the new memory of Eli is that Eli is the one who empowered me so that I score. It was such a good feeling, and it was Eli that enabled it. Now the memory is not Eli face is the black eye and the pain. It's Eli face goal.
Wow.
You know, it's like Eli.
That's
how it worked in my mind.
That's really powerful, and this is why I try to break things down as simply as quickly as possible, because it can be as simple as that. Obviously, depending on our baggage, it tends not to be. We have to work on ourselves. But I'm trying to get down to how you as an entrepreneur do great things, how you get through those difficult pain points within your life, because it's all very well having the blueprint, as I said from the beginning, of being successful, but it takes things like this, being able to forgive, being able just to do it and see what works and not be perfect, and all those other things we've spoken about. This is what helps you to be successful, because you get the high and low points. All these accumulated things go to push for success. Yes, so basically we've already gone through the pain points, and we see how you've been positive when it comes to what we've just spoken about here. Going back to the UN, because your heart is in the right place, which is you always want to help, but the pain point for you was to do business for business sake. So that was painful, but because we've gone back to see how your mindset from even as a child, this is what brings you and makes you drive through to do what you need to do to come out of the UN and put a business together so you can then feed your family, which is the most important thing. And I'm just amazed in the way you think, because you used your faith, your spiritualism. Even as a boy, you knew that control was there with the TV. So you did something about it and you just got up and went forward. So going back to that point where you left the UN, you used all those elements that you've come with from a child through to adulthood, etc. What else pushed you through? So you're bringing the business together. How did you cope getting through? So just take us building up the business from the time of the UN. How did that go?
Yeah, it was, for me, it was a very interesting process, and also a very difficult one. So, you know, when you are an entrepreneur and you've been an entrepreneur since you're a young age, actually, going to the UN was my first job. I didn't have I did a lot of small jobs, but I never really had an official job. I was just doing my own businesses all along, creating my own enterprises, my own digital businesses. So it was my first job. It was the first job that I go through interviews and then you're scored. And, you know, it was really the first experience of going through recruitment in a way.
Wow.
So that was already weird for me.
Okay.
You know, going through recruitments, there is a job application, there is, you know, there's a structure, there are processes, there are KPIs about humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the UN has probably some of the most elaborate selection criteria and things. You know, it's very hard to get into the UN, and I was blessed and lucky that they were looking for an unusual profile, and I was that unusual wild profile at that time for that position.
Okay.
So I got in the UN, but I think at another time and context, I would have never been selected as an employee for the UN, because I later noticed that any such organization that goes beyond a certain size,
Yeah.
I almost feel like whatever goodwill they have at the top, by the time it reaches the beneficiary, it gets twisted.
Okay.
And it took me 4 or 5 years to realize it with the UN, because I really took the UN charter at heart, because that was, you know, like you said, we want to do good.
Yes.
And I mean, what's better than the United Nations in terms of doing good to, especially in developing countries? So I really devoted my work, and I reinvested kind of a big part of my UN salary back into my projects. Like sometimes because of administrative and billing things, there are things that you cannot pay for or refund with the UN, but then those things is what makes the difference on the ground in Gambia, you know, for that project. So I would pay with my own money.
Okay.
You know, I was just to get the things done so that our people can actually benefit from it. So I would use between 10 to 15% of my own salary.
Wow.
I was using it back to run the projects I was involved in. That's how much I really take it seriously. And I would, with my team and my colleagues, sometimes we work. It's supposed to be a 9 to 6 job, but we would work 12 hours, 14 hours.
Wow.
A day. So probably in the 5 years I did in the UN, I did 8 years of a normal 9 to 6 admin. In terms of exposure.
Okay.
So that was really nice, because I realized that unfortunately or fortunately, appearances, they play a role in the human behavior.
Yeah.
So if I go as Mohamed, for example, if I go as Mohamed and our project is about Morocco, we want to help the Moroccan government into doing X and Y. And then if I am in Morocco as a Moroccan and I have a great ID and I go to the government or even my cousins, I said, hey, I have this ID, it can work. You do A and B, it gives you C. They say, you're just a Mohammed.
I see.
Yeah. And then when you're Mohammed who comes with the blue diplomatic passport of the UN, and now you're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Be it nonsense or be it valuable advice.
Yeah.
The same advice. Say, oh, it's Mohammed from the UN.
Yeah.
They listen. So that's what I realized first. So I use it to my advantage.
Okay.
Because I knew that what I have is good. The second thing that I realized is that people also value academic. I would say they overvalue academic degrees or papers. Yeah. So I noticed that if it's Mohammed, this guy who didn't study, he comes and say, I don't know.
Yeah. You got no credibility.
Yeah, no credibility, even if you say the truth.
Yeah.
Then you come and you say, Dr. Mohammed.
Yeah.
Or the doctor does the sale.
Yeah.
You know, even though again it's completely empty and so on. So I noticed that, damn, it's much more impactful, the perception of that people make of you as a human.
Yeah.
The things that they need, like references of trust, like you said.
Yeah.
So when I realized that, I thought, hey, there's no better environment than to be heard when you have something true to say than being with the UN and having a PhD.
Yes.
Then I can check all these boxes of those closed minds, so that at least they can open their ears.
Yeah.
And listen. So that's what I did. I said, okay, then I'm going to get a PhD. I really don't. I don't need the PhD. I don't even think that it's really valuable in the life of a human.
But you're seeing you're talking about from a perception point of view of somebody
From a
else.
perception,
That's where the power
it has. it has that power. It has that power. It's misused because a lot of charlatan,
Yes.
a lot of people who actually don't have knowledge, first-hand knowledge,
Yeah.
they use their PhD to write a book or something, and then they go and they do catastrophic things because they
Yeah.
come and they advise
Totally.
completely stupid frameworks that do not work even in the context that they read it from. So I saw that damage. I saw like economists coming with these big theories into developing countries and disturbing the actual intelligence of the people there.
Yeah.
So I saw that as the UN, we were dumbing down people.
I hear you.
Yeah. So that's where I saw the advantage, the disadvantage, and then at one point, so for the first few years, it was fantastic. I was really making the best use of it, sharing with people and so on. And then, like the administrative, bureaucratic, decision-making, risk-averse mentality of a big organization catches up to you.
Yeah, it does. No, I get that totally.
Yeah. So that's when I decided to go back to the private sector, because I thought that now I have enough credentials to be heard.
Yeah.
And I think my little personal truth, my little experimental knowledge
that
I can share, even though if it will be a smaller scale, but it may have a bigger impact, I may be more effective to help people if I'm just a businessman.
Yes.
That's how I switched. And I didn't want to stay in the UN, and so I just went out.
So you made the big push from there, which has made you successful in more ways than one. I mean, like I said, when we talk together, we go down the mulberry bush. We really do. I think what I'm going to do, Mohamed, I think we should do another one again, because there's a lot to speak about. And we've spoken about a huge amount, massive amount. We've gone back to way back in the days when you was a child, how you've come about to how you are now. And I found it fascinated massively so. And Mohamed, I just want to say thank you for coming on and speaking with me. Is there anything you want to share, as in how do you get contacted if anybody wants to contact you in more ways than one?
Yes, so maybe the LinkedIn profile, or LinkedIn probably would be the best. I can share with you my LinkedIn profile. Okay. But maybe also to close the subject, because like you said, when two kids' mind, they come together, you and me, bald head, but like really big kids, they can go in many ways. But maybe if I try to crystallize what I learned from this interaction, and thank you for driving it, is that, like you said, as entrepreneurs, I think the most valuable thing that I discovered, and maybe that can come in this discussion, is that whatever we do in commerce, what was very helpful for me from when I did my first commercial experience at 4 or 5 years old until now, is that commerce is a H2H experience. It's a human to human. And that really helps me a lot, because whatever you do, when you build a machine, you sell a car, you sell a financial services, you sell an automation, you're not selling it to a robot. You're not selling it to a stone. It's a human that creates the value, and it's a human that brings that value to another human. So the value creation is made by a human using nature or technology, and then that added value is going to be consumed by a human. Even when we bring petrol and we put it in a car, you may think that it's the commodity is petrol for the car, for the engine, so the customer is the car. And there's no such thing. It's the driver of the car. So whatever you're in terms of industry, we just have to remember H2H. That's where I wanted to lock it down.
Okay, so everybody, to be honest, me and Mohamed, we have these deep conversations, and I was going to speak more about actually technology and other things that go together, but we've delved in so much in other ways. We're going to do another one together, and we're going to focus on technology and etc., because there's a lot to speak about. So what we'll do, we'll catch up another time. But again, Mohamed, thank you for coming on this podcast. And if you can come on another time, and then we can delve into technology and spiritualism, and which is a very interesting subject. But I think it was a good thing to show how diverse Mohamed is and how he's got to today. Because it's one thing, as I keep on saying, having the blueprint for being successful in business, but it's another thing having the mindset, where that mindset comes from and how you carry through that mindset. So I just wanted to lay that down first of all, so that it would help you all to understand how you can become successful yourself. And then the next time when I bring Mohamed on, we can now then talk about these other things that we needed to speak about. But Mohamed, thank you once again. And
thank you, Eli.
Right.
Sorry for diverting the subject.
Listen,
anytime, let's do the
and it was perfect. I found it riveting. So thank you once again, and I say to everybody, sayonara.
Sayonara.